Welcome to the Modology Motorsports Podcast, Season 1, Episode 2. I'm Blake.
And I'm Marcus.
And we got a fun-filled, action-packed show for you today since the last one. Stuff has happened, things have changed, project ideas have changed, and I backed into a wall. It worked. It worked. It was raining the other day. Well, I guess let me back up. When I changed the wiring harness on the Civic, when I added the VTEC head, I took the wiring harness out of the other car, which was an automatic. And the cool thing about Hondas is you take this wiring harness for the engine, it unplugs right at the firewall, and you can transfer it over to another car, another Civic. Well, it was for an automatic, so I lost my reverse lights because the plugs for the automatic transmission and the manual were different. I back into this wall at work because it's dark, it's raining. There's a Coca-Cola plant right across the street from us, and they've spent the money. They got these nice, big, bright LED floodlights. I end up backing into this wall, and I sat there, and I was shaking, and I was mad, and I was like, I don't even want to look. I don't even want to get out and look at it. And I was finally like, okay, just you're calm down. Just get out and see what you've done to it. And I was thinking I'd probably crack the bumper or rub the Plastidip off or something. So,
was it one of those Band-Aid moments where you just it's like sit there. And I was like, right, I'm just going to get out and open the door and have a look now.
Right. So I'm going to get out in the rain. I'm just pissed. Let me just see what the hell is happening. Well, it was okay. And I hit it hard too, but it was all right. The Plastidip didn't roll up or scratch off. The bumper didn't crack. So I've got a little more faith in the Plastidip now. It's kind of gave me a little peace of mind as far as stuff hitting the car, what it can handle without messing the Plastidip up on it, which it kind of makes like a rubberized layer on the car anyway. Well, it's thin, I mean, it's at least something else between the body of the car, so that was all right. And then the last episode, I talked about the trash truck, and there's a YouTube video for the trash truck where it was leaving. Well, it was over at father-in-law's place where the trash truck is now, and I got to hear the truck run. It's just running again. He pumped out 5 gallons of water out of the fuel tank. And I think I mentioned this on the last episode. We were over there and he showed me like these buckets of just water and gas and stuff he had pumped out of the tank. So you put some fresh fuel in it. It's running again, but he took it for a drive, let it idle. He said it idled fine. Then he started to drive it and started doing the same thing it was doing to me, where it was cutting out, skipping, wanting to die. And he had to push it part of the way back home. He started pushing it, got part of the way back home, tried it again, it started, and it kind of limped itself back to the house. So there's so many things I need to borrow that truck to do, so many just house projects I need to do with it, but it doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. It's better than it was, but it's still about the same, I guess. It runs now, but it's still not running right.
It's a shame because I expect you could probably do with being able to have that extra vehicle just to tow stuff or get large things in that you just can't get into the back of the Civic.
Exactly. Or haul the trash off. That was the whole thing I wanted it for.
Hence the name Trash Truck.
Exactly. Well, Marcus, what have you been up to?
I've installed my my racing seat into my car, which was a little bit harder than I first expected, only due to the fact that I originally thought about making it so that I could have the seat move backwards and forwards, and then I decided that, screw everybody else. If they want to get into my car, then they're going to have either smaller or larger legs.
Right, this is my race car.
Yeah, my race car is set up for me. So I decided in the end to go I had to get a subframe that sits and connects to the actual floor of the car. And then on top of that subframe is sort of like fixed position mounts that go on that have a height adjustment so that you can stick yourself up and make sure that you're at the right height. Because I like to be quite high in the driver's seat and fairly close-ish to the steering wheel when I'm racing. And it's worked out pretty well. I put it all together and sort of test fitted it a couple of times, made sure everything was sat right. I borrowed my father's helmet, stuck that on, and then sat in the car. My head literally just grazes the top of the ceiling in the car.
Right.
So with the helmet on, I'm just about there. The problem that I have at the moment is getting out of the car. Now, because of the raised sides of the seats, it means that essentially I've got to lift my legs up a lot higher to get over the side and get out.
All right.
So the issue that I've got is that the standard steering wheel, even with the repositioning of the steering wheel, it's got a telescopic mount on it that if I push it all the way up, my legs still don't quite clear. I have to sort of turn myself sideways and sort of bend my legs to get it out and swing them over just so that I can get out. And there is absolutely zero way I'm going to do that anywhere quickly enough if I need to get out of the car. I'm going to end up having to bite the bullet and get myself a removable boss and a steering wheel to go in there. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, I've got videos all up together, and they're going to be posted on the Modology YouTube channel sometime in the next couple of weeks or so. Hopefully that will be something more interesting to look at than literally nothing that I've posted so far for the car, which has been a bit of a disappointment. That's more my fault than anything else. Run out of battery on my camera whilst doing it, and then run out of space on the card whilst doing it. And so ended up having to skip a load of stuff and did some work on the car without being able to document it. But what I'm going to end up doing is an overall video, and then make sure that I put the seat video in, and that should be cool at that point. So also on the car as well, I've got the electronic kill switch sort of placed into the dash where the stereo used to be. I've still got to make a mounting plate for it at the moment. It's literally just hanging out of the dash at the moment, so it doesn't look particularly pretty. The problem that I had with that is initially when I was doing it, it was in the middle of the day, freezing cold. I'd had to push the car outside because I couldn't work on it in the garage because my dad's Buick was in the way. The Buick is a massive, massive car. In fact, I'll probably have to do a video on the Buick at some point as well. I think some people would quite enjoy it. It's an old 1930s.
Oh, wow.
Massive thing. White wall tires and the whole 9 yards. But anyway, back to the story. It was freezing cold. It was, hands were numb, trying to get all the wires pulled through the bulkhead and all the rest of it, and repositioning everything so that I could get it through where the stereo used to be. And you could start hearing little pitter-patter on the roof of the car, and I was like, oh, I've got no electrics in the car. I can't do any of the windows up. Half of my tools are outside on the floor. I'm holding the doors open with an old vacuum cleaner and a chair. It was just comical, really. So I was rushing to try and get it all done, put it all together, went to go switch the switch on, and I thought that I had blown like one of the main fuses. Cut a long story short, because I was rushing, I had actually earthed it to a point in the car where the passenger seat used to be. It just wasn't a good enough earth, basically, and it meant that it tried to start. Initially, you could hear sort of like a click noise, but that was literally just where it tried to burn through the paint, where I actually sort of bolted it to the floor.
Right.
So one of my friends was with me when I was doing a load of bits and pieces on the car. He had a proper look around and all the rest of it, and he just literally looked at me, and I looked at him, and he pulled off the wire, bolted it to I think it's like a relay. There's a relay that's bolted into the side of the car on the passenger side, and then he just looked at me, turned the switch on the car, and it fired up, and I was like, asshole. But yeah, so me trying to be quick meant that, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily had to have pushed it in on my own, with it pissing down with rain,
Right.
in the freezing cold. But, you know, you live and learn these things. And next time I'll make sure that I'll spend a little bit more time and make sure it's all connected correctly next time. On top of all of that as well, I've installed my new brakes as well, which was a story in itself, because the previous owner said when I picked it up, oh, the brakes need changing. They're not too bad, but, you know, the brake warning light's on. I crack off the wheel and get to the brakes, pull the caliper off. When I do that, you know, this small little shard hits the floor. I'm like, what the hell's that? It turns out that shard was the remaining part of the brake pad.
Oh no!
To the actual back of the plate itself, and it was just like that. That was what was left. So it was about a millimeter, maybe even like half a mil. God knows what. But it was like a flake of rust that had happened.
What you were using to stop with?
Yeah, apparently so, or not, as the case may be. So really, at that point, what the guy had really meant when he said that there was a little bit of brake pad left, and that you know, I was fine to get back home, was you're driving a death trap home, that if you pressed any harder on the brake, it probably would have overextended the piston for the caliper completely and locked up that side of the car and disintegrated everything in its path. But, you know, tomato.
Yeah, but you'll be fine. Just take it easy.
Yeah, just take it easy. It's fine. So on top of that, then, really, at that point, you got to think that the brake sensor protrudes from the bottom back of the plate, so that when it gets to the point where it's getting too close, it fires off a little warning in the cab and says, you know, you need to check your brakes, dude. Unfortunately, it had been left for so long that it ground half of the front face of the sensor off.
Oh my God.
So you can imagine exactly how close it was getting to that point. So I've had to get a new brake sensor to be able to carry on without getting annoyed by this brake warning light continuously showing up on there. So it was pretty bad. In fact, I'll probably sort of give a little bit of a video and show you around that. I've kept the pads, so I can show you guys whenever I get around to doing my general summary video, or at least possibly when I change the sensor out, might do that and show you that. But yeah, a little bit worrying that it was left that long. But yeah, pretty bad, really.
When you said you changed the brakes, did you do just the pads and the rotors, or did you change the calipers and everything?
No. I literally just changed out the brake pads for the moment. I'm trying to keep the amount of money that I'm spending on this as low as possible at the moment, right, until I feel like I need to go a bit further. So I expect what will probably happen is I'll push out for better tires, which will eventually mean that my brakes will have to be upgraded to keep up with the stopping power that will be thrown into the tires. Usually standard brakes aren't too bad on what I'm going to be doing. We'll see how it goes. It might end up being a little bit precarious at some point when they overheat or something along those lines, but I'm not really expecting anything too untowards at the moment, so we'll see how it goes, especially with the amount of weight that I've kicked out of the thing. So
yeah, that's true.
It's not got as much rolling weight to stop at the moment, so we'll see how that sort of feels. If I don't feel happy with it, eventually I'll spend a little money and get that all sorted. But the only reason why I went sort of that far into it at that moment in time with the brake discs was because I was in the middle of changing out the suspension on the Mini as well. I changed it all out for Bilstein shocks and coilovers on it, basically. And so I'd done front and back on there. The back suspension went on okay, but it was a bit confusing the way that the diagram showed. There was a lot of weird ways that the shock design and how it all bolted into the suspension was a bit different. So we had to figure it out so that it, sat correctly in there. But apart from that, the actual installation of the rear suspension went pretty well. When it came around to the front, it was a whole different kettle of fish. So apart from the fact that the brakes were almost non-existent, the sensor on it was gone, the caliper pistons were almost pushed all the way out to the point where they were going to literally flip sideways and destroy the world. I noticed that when we were sort of moving everything around, that the CV inner boots on both sides are pretty much completely gone. So they've just sprayed all of the grease and lubricant and everything all the way around the inside, everywhere, which probably, at some point probably wasn't great for the braking as well, because you could literally, it's caked on everything. It's just sprayed it out everywhere. And also as well, I noticed that the front driver's side lower wishbone ball joint had pretty much completely collapsed. So I've got ball joints for both sides already in a box waiting to go in there now. But because of the time constraints that I had and my friends were helping me out, we didn't get all of it all back together again. I'm still waiting to pull out the CV boots themselves so that I can get them fixed up. So at the moment, it's just stood downstairs on a set of rolling stands underneath the subframe, keeping up the completely missing front end. So it looks pretty pitiful at the moment, poor little thing. And whilst I was there fiddling around with it and sorting out a few bits and pieces, I've been having a sort of quandary as to where all of the coolant seems to be disappearing to on that thing, and I had a couple of ideas of where it might be. And I get the funny feeling that the expansion tank has got a split in it. It's a standard issue with those cars because the expansion tank sits right above the exhaust manifold. So It's subjected to quite a lot of heat. I know it's got a shield in between it, but it's just, it's just one of those ones that leaks. So I'm looking into it at the moment, and hopefully I'll figure it out and get it all sorted. I'll probably end up upgrading the coolant tank and go for an alley tank. Yeah, probably go for an alley one with a viewport, sort of like a front end of it, sort of like see-through, so that you can actually see what level you're at and all the rest of it. So We'll see how it all goes. Hopefully it'll be easy. Failing that, it'll probably be a long drawn out YouTube video. Right. Trying to install it and trying to figure it out and top it all back up and bleed all the air out of it. But yeah. And then I think after that was pretty much it for the car. And then I sat down and a couple of days later knocked up a new YouTube banner.
Which looks awesome, by the way.
Yeah. I can't take full credit for all of the art on it, but put together, and it looks a lot better than what it was. So we'll have to see how it all goes.
We'll go from. We got a couple more things. So I got a couple more things in our cars section. We'll go from Marcus's coolant problems to mine. This been cold. Been like real cold here, like unseasonably cold for winter. We barely usually get a couple days below freezing, but this year it's been like down in the teens. It's extremely cold in Georgia. I was having problems with the head gasket on the Civic. I knew the head gasket was blown, which was a bummer considering the cylinder head I put on the car I knew came off a car that wasn't leaking, and the block I assumed was okay. Well, as a quick fix, I tried to pour just some stop leak in it, and it worked for a couple weeks. It didn't overheat. It ran fine. It wasn't drinking antifreeze. But those things, I think, just kind of buy you time more than they do anything, because it started leaking again. So I had some more in the trunk, because they said with a 4-cylinder, only used half a bottle. So I had another half a bottle, and the day I decided to pour it in there, I get the stop leak out of the trunk, and it's frozen in the bottle, so it wasn't coming out. So I was out of the store, so I said, I'll just pour more antifreeze in it just to get home. And, in the summer, if I have these problems, I just pour water in it because it's just going to drink it anyway. So, but with it being this cold, it'd be ridiculous to pour water in there because then I'll end up freezing something, cracking the block, cracking the radiator. I've been having to buy antifreeze. I was going through maybe a half a gallon of antifreeze a week. The heat it works, but it barely works. The thermostat's out of the car, so I've got cardboard in front of the radiator to try and stop some of the cold air from blowing through it. The weather gets warmer. I'm going to have to do something. And me and you talked today about, some possible ideas, but, and there's a video up for it on our YouTube channel. Driving, where was I going? I was coming home from work. I was about maybe 5 minutes away from the house, if even that far. And I hear something pop, and I just see steam just rolling out from under the car all over the people behind me. And I thought, oh, no. And then I thought, screw it. I'm like 5 minutes from the house, if even that. I'm not stopping. If it blows the motor up, I don't care. I'm not stopping. So I kept going, and it got over halfway. It started getting warm, but it never got up like dangerously warm. Got home, took the keys out of it, walked in the house. Didn't even pop the hood to look at it. I said, I just don't want to know right now. I'm home. It's the weekend. I'll figure it out in the morning. So I waited till the next day until it was warmer out. As warm as it was going to be, which was like 34 degrees. Yeah. It was like it was above freezing, so it's time to go look at it now. Well, the bottom radiator hose is split. And it was the only hose I haven't changed on that car. I changed the top radiator hose, all the heater lines, pretty much all of it, but the bottom. So I'd made it pretty much the weakest rubber on the car. So it finally gave out. And I took my wife's car to AutoZone. I got there, and the lady that was working looked at my hose, and then she walks to the back, and she looks at the top of the rack where I guess the hose should be. And then she looks at me, and she goes, come here. And I said, what, really? And she was like, yeah, come here. So I went back there behind the counter, and she goes, I just had knee surgery, and I don't need to be climbing this ladder. Can you climb up there and get your own hose? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. So I climb up. Right. So I climb up there and I'm looking for it and I don't see it. And I'm like, oh man, they're not going to have it. And she goes, well, no, it says we got 3 in stock. We got to have it around here somewhere. She goes, well, here, just climb back down and look in these bins down here on the bottom. There was like 2 big old baskets full of radiator hoses down on the bottom. The phone rings and I'm looking through that, and she leaves to answer the phone. And she had dumped like part of the basket out on the floor. Well, I look up like on the bottom of the rack in front of me, it was hanging right there at the bottom. So I pick it up, take it off the rack, pick all the other ones up, put them back in the basket, put the basket back under the rack. And she gets off the phone and she walks over. She goes, you found it? I said, yeah. And she goes, did you clean all those back up? And I said, yeah, I didn't want to leave them just laying on the floor for y'all. And she goes, well, do you want a job? And I said, really? And she goes, yeah, I just need somebody that can come in on truck days and just help stock stuff and put it where it's supposed to go. And I said, well, ma'am, the job I work, I've been working a lot of overtime. I don't think I'd be able to, come up and help like that. And she says, well, here, let me just give you a discount for finding it yourself. And I was like,
nice.
Oh, cool. So she gave me a 10% hospitality discount for finding the parts myself. So that was okay.
Well, you can't sniff at that 10% off,
Right. Mm. And then, so I got the hose on, as when I was putting more fluid in it in the video. I didn't say anything in the video, but when I took the cap off and looked at it, the stop leak had sealed the top of the radiator cap shut.
Oh.
So it couldn't vent the excess pressure. So I think that is what finally blew the hose out. With it being weaker than the rest, all that extra pressure is what blew it out.
Yeah.
So I changed caps again, put a clean cap on it. All the stop leak is gone out of it now. So it's just straight antifreeze again. And now I'm back to going through about a half a gallon antifreeze a week.
Nice.
And we talked, and I think realistically, I want to turbo that car, but with the stuff I need to do and the amount of money I'm going to spend on it, it may be next spring before I can start on it. Unless unless we start picking up a bunch of overtime at work, which is a very real possibility.
Yeah. Right
now, my priority is I've got a whole box of parts sitting in this office for my wife's Focus. I mean, there's everything from filters to shift solenoids to transmission pan gaskets. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Motor mounts, everything, tires. There's tires sitting in here now. They just came in the mail the other day. So my goal is to get her car fixed and finished, turn around, get the Accord running. That way I have a car that'll run and hopefully not leak. get it running, and then I can turn around and decide what I'm going to do with the Civic, because I also want to change the brakes, the suspension. But right now, with it drinking that much antifreeze, it's costing me more to drive that car than that's money I could be putting in, like, performance parts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to sit down throwing all this money into antifreeze when, it could have paid for your turbo by now.
Right. I mean, it's $12 a gallon, and I'm having to buy a gallon every 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's not a whole lot of money, but on top of like 93 octane fuel is something else that, I don't have to put in it that I do all the time. So
It all builds up over time, though. Yeah, that's what you got to think.
exactly.
Mm.
We talked a little today. I think what I'm going to do is, I know the guy that bought the cylinder head I took off the car. I think I'm going to talk to him and see if he wants to sell it, pull the VTEC head off, because I didn't want to mess with the VTEC head until I was getting it fixed and ready for a turbo motor. We'll keep the VTEC head off, put the stock cylinder head back on, maybe go have it checked, have it pressure tested, make sure it's level this time, and put it back on and just make it a non-VTEC car again and drive it until I pick up the Z6 block and start building that motor, that turbo motor. And then I have another stock motor I can always fall back on should something happen to the turbo motor. So, because the same computer will run both of them, there may be some like pieces I won't be able to run. I mean, I'm looking at running a catch can and stuff with the turbo motor, but
yeah,
I could always just leave that and stuff unplugged with the stock motor. So, just that's kind of stuff's been crossing my mind here lately. I want to make progress with the turbo, but I got to have something I can drive in the meantime. And the Civic is not going to hold up this until I can do it.
No, I mean, you're going to have to pile a lot of time into the Civic to get her back up to scratch again. So,
yes, like I said,
it's frustrating. I can understand that, but it's going to be worth it in the end.
Oh yeah, it'll be an expensive project, but I think I'll be really happy and really proud of it by the time I've finished with it, if that's possible to finish with one.
Yeah,
I did throw a couple parts at it. I had a motor mount, the top motor mount on the driver's side laying around here.
Yeah.
And for the Civic, I threw it in. Did not know how bad that motor mount was until I put the brand new one side by side with it.
Ooh, that bad?
It was bad. It was pretty much, there's a bolt that runs through the center of the motor mount and both sides of the bracket. So much of the mount had deteriorated that the mount was sliding back and forth on that bolt, rubbing the threads off of it.
Whoa, that's bad.
So
that's bad.
I don't know if that's something that happened recently or if that's something that had been happening, but I could feel the motor like rock back and forth. Like when you're on the gas just a little, I could feel the motor rocking. I finally figured out that it was that motor mount, so changed it. That made a world of difference driving it, as far as how it feels. And I put a new stereo in it, which, I threw $40 at a stereo. Just put a YouTube video up for that today. It's got a little 4.1-inch screen on it. It's Bluetooth, no CD player. It'll take USB sticks with music on them or a micro SD card. But I just put the video up today for that. So if you're listening to this now, then go check the video out. And one more thing before I finish this up and we move on to the next section. The wife, we were talking the other day after I got all her parts for her car, and she said, I said, well, now that I got all this put on, we can start on working on the Accord for you. And she goes, well, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. And I said, what is it? She goes, I have no interest in driving a 5-speed. And I said, no. And she said, no, I have no interest. And she goes, if I'm going to get another car, I want to get something I really want. And I said, no, okay. I said, so what are you saying? She goes, I'm saying you can have the Accord. And I said, oh, okay. That's what I wanted to hear. So it's mine now. I can do whatever I want to it, which probably won't be much, but I want to keep it reliable, but I'd like to have a little fun with it too. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to leave it completely stuck. This isn't Stockology. This is Modology.
Exactly.
So
yeah, it'll be mine now, and as soon as I'm done with her car, I'll pull the head off it, get it fixed, and drive it. But unless you got something else, that's all I've got for the R car section.
No, I think I'm pretty much there at the moment. I haven't managed to get much stuff done because the last couple of weeks have been pretty damn hectic where I am at the moment. So I've had to put that on the back burner for for a week now, and sort of hopefully pick it up again sometime soon. Just do a few bits and pieces, get some videos out and ready for the YouTube, and going from there, really.
I understand that. I know how it has to go. I know how it feels to have to put a project you really want to do on the back burner. I completely understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, a couple of weeks isn't too bad, to be honest, in my world, where it's been years since I've dabbled with anything until recently. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good when it starts going. I'll be happy once I can get in it and I can actually drive it and have an actual moving shell that I don't have to push myself.
Right.
Yeah, so, wheels on it would be a start.
Well, last episode we promised a feature car or a feature part section, maybe a car of the week or a mod of the week, or episode, excuse me. Well, we have a car of the episode.
Yeah, we have.
Season 1, episode 2. I kind of talked to Marcus about, I've seen them all over the place, all over my town, towards Atlanta. It's this little 2-seater sports car. And I've seen a ton of them modified on different car websites I look at, and a couple of the groups I follow on Facebook, they've been popping up. And I had no idea what this thing was beyond just a Toyota. To make it even more confusing, I'd seen the same Toyota with a Subaru badge on the front of it, and the same Toyota with a Scion badge on the front of it. Well, the car today we're going to talk about is the Toyota 86. And this car was a collab with Toyota and Subaru. They both took the same body, kind of worked the engines a little different, but it came out 3 different models. There was the Toyota 86. The Subaru took the exact same body, called it the Subaru BRZ. And Scion took the same body, and they called it the FRS. But until I started looking up this car, I didn't even know Scion had been discontinued. So all the XAs and XBs that are out there, that's just all up. I'm not sure what they call it. Do you have those in Europe, the Scion line?
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, we get Toyota and Subaru, but I can't say that I've specifically seen Scion. If it has, it's, hasn't really been a massive hit here, if it has.
Yeah, here they were sold usually alongside Toyota. So I kind of wondered if it was like a Honda Acura deal or a Nissan Infiniti kind of thing where you have like it's all in the same family. It's just a different, I guess, price class of car pretty much. But
yeah,
I didn't know, like I said, until I looked this up, that they had just discontinued Scion all outright.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. But, until you pointed it out to me, I hadn't really looked at any of them before. So I hadn't really sort of realized that the 86 and the BRZ were the same thing pretty much, because I'd never really looked at them and compared them before. And because they're not ones that have really sort of shown around where I live, or, with my limited experience at that point for being away from the track and stuff like that, I hadn't really seen anything like that come along. So it hadn't really sort of been a blip on my radar. According to the 86 designers, the goal was to create an authentic rear-wheel drive sports car with compelling style, apparently. I'm not sure. I'm not a massive fan of the body shape, but that's just not me. They tried to balance performance and handling and flexible utility with surprising miles per gallon. So aside from the badging, the main difference between the Toyota 86 and the Subaru BRZ are the front grills and the bumper bars. The rest, including the 17-inch alloy wheels, are all shared throughout the rest of them. The car is also characterized by symbolic references and various motifs associated with the number 86 and Toyota heritage. So the engine bore and stroke is 86 millimeters by 86 millimeters, and the diameter of the exhaust tip is also 86 millimeters.
Do you remember the Mazda RX-8 when it came out? And yes. it had the rotary in the headrest, and it had a rotary down on the front bumper?
Yep. It also had a rotary shape exhaust.
Right. I always thought that was really neat how they worked all that in with that car.
Yeah. Sort of running theme.
Right. Yeah, I saw a BRZ the other day. We went to a home supply store, and there was one sitting out in the parking lot. And there's just subtle differences between the BRZ and the 86. They look almost identical.
Mm.
But if you get time later on, and this goes to everybody listening, look up a 86 or a BRZ that has a wide body kit on it, and that's a thing of beauty.
Oh, they look mean. They look very mean.
Well, they're very mean. To me, the engines are lacking a little something to be desired. The 86 is powered by Toyota's 2.0 liter 4-cylinder engine, which while it's not a slouch, it's around 200 horsepower. It's a high compression motor, so it's 12.5 to 1. Where like my Honda is only like 9.5 to 1.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a lot of compression, and you got to run that thing on premium unleaded fuel, or you're going to have some knocking issues.
Yep, that thing's gonna be pinking right down the street.
So Toyota gives you your choice of a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic, and the Toyota has a 0 to 60 time listed at 6.2 seconds. So it's not a slouch, but I think a TRD turbo kit package or something like that would be a nice little factory upgrade for that car.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, the Subaru, it gets its classic motor. It's got the 2.0 liter 4-cylinder Boxer, which Boxers are. When I first found out what a Boxer was and how it operated, it kind of blew my mind how the pistons move sideways instead of vertically. That's really cool. Even with the engine difference and the engine with the BRZ having the Boxer engine, it's still, I don't know if they limited it or what they've done, but it's only 200 horsepower and it has the exact same 0 to 60 time. So they've kept the cars performance wise, besides the engines being operating different, they perform the exact same. The BRZ also comes with your choice of a 6-speed manual or automatic, and it's the only car right now that Subaru has in their lineup that's not all-wheel drive. Another one of their signature atoms of their vehicles. Which it kind of be nice if one day like Toyota does a TRD version, maybe Subaru does an STI version of it, which they may be out now or they may be on the way. But I'd like to see some factory performance versions of these two cars.
It would be interesting, especially with the wide body kits already available and stuff like that, with the proper, really sort of throaty upgrade to the engine would be brilliant, and especially with a bit of 4-wheel drive from Subaru as per usual. I think that thing would absolutely fly. The retail price for the Subaru is about £1,000 lower than the BRZ. Sorry. Getting confused. This is the problem. The 86 and the BRZ, they look totally exactly the same in my eyes, and I haven't really paid too much attention to them before, so I completely get confused. So it's lower, £1,000 lower for the Subaru compared to the 86. The BRZ is listed at 25,500, while the Toyota 86 is listed at 26,600. I'm not sure why. It doesn't really make much sense to me in my head. It's essentially the same thing. They're running same brake horsepower. All the differences is a different motor. So maybe that's the same. Maybe that's the difference.
I think out of the two, I would maybe take the Subaru to have a Boxer engine.
Yeah, I probably would.
Because of how you.
It would be literally just because the Boxer engine.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. Probably, actually, to be fair, I expect you'll probably be able to get a bit more power out of the Boxer engine than you would do the other one.
I wonder what the compression is on the. Wonder what the compression is on the Boxer. I wonder if you could throw a turbo on that Boxer engine.
You can throw a turbo on anything, surely, or a supercharger.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Supercharge it. There you go. Subaru, get on it.
Well, that's our car for the episode. The Toyota 86, the Subaru BRZ, the Scion FRS, all the same thing, apparently, with all the same horsepower, body shape, wheels. I just thought it was real neat that they took this car and did a collab with Subaru and Toyota together, because I haven't seen, back in the years ago, there was a car company here called Eagle, and they had a car called the Eagle Talon. And it was identical to the Mitsubishi Eclipse. It was a collab with Mitsubishi. So while the badging on it was different, the front bumper was slightly different. But when you pop the hood, it had the 2.0 liter 4-cylinder Mitsubishi motor in it.
Nice.
That's one of the last collabs that I remember like that. Well, we got an email today. We got feedback.
Yay, feedback.
We got a email from Lee. He took the time to write in, and Lee filled us in with his car history. So it's a little long, but there's a lot of good stuff here. So I'm gonna roll through it. He says, Blake and Marcus, I really liked your first podcast, and it got me to thinking about all the cars I've owned over the years, which turned into an essay. Here it is for your perusal and determination, how it could be presented. Which Lee had asked me, he said, do you want me to read it, or do you want to read it, or what? So I told him, we would read it. Take care, Lee. He said, first car to current. So this is his very first car. His first car was a black 1961 Chevy Impala two-door with a 293 cubic inch small block V8 with a three-speed Hurst speed shifter on the floor and an engine compartment you could climb into. It also featured a switch on the dash for the backup lights. Since the column shifter had been removed, that was fun to use in traffic. He says, I bought it for my brother Bruce in 1975. He had combined a Bel Air with a good engine with the Impala that had a good body. First year after the huge fins, and this is the only 61 Impala I've ever seen with a roof overhang on the back, like the old Chevy trucks. Most you see had the smooth SS rear roof. It was black, and since the roof was relatively flat, someone had put black vinyl fake leather on it. The first repair, take a large punch and sledge to knock holes in the rear floorboard to let the rainwater out, that's Honda trunks leak, and you learn very quickly that there's rubber plugs in the bottom you can just pull out and leave those out.
Nice.
Turning it into an alley, kabam, coil spring broke. Looking at the brake, it was obvious that there was a bubble in the casting and it only took 15 years for it to break. I missed that one major repair that we had made to the car. Camshaft replacement happened when I was sick with strep throat. My dad took it out through the front of the engine, and he said it took every tool he owned. It turned out the car ran badly because 3 of the 16 cams were worn round.
Oh.
When the carburetor float sank, it even mystified the local Chevy dealer.
Well, that probably doesn't take much.
Right. Well, what do you mean the cams are round?
They're supposed to be round. They turn, don't they?
That's how they work. Driving from Macon, Georgia to St. Pete, Florida, in a pack of cars doing 70 when we still had a double nickel speed limit, and kawam! Then nothing. Pull over, the engine's still running, turned the engine off, and got out and looked under the car, nothing, no apparent problems. Started back out, and it was a bit sluggish. It was okay for the last 50 miles. This happened a couple more times before I realized that the ever more sluggish starts were because I started stripping teeth off the transmission main gear. Sold the car for cheap to some people who disappeared and never paid us.
Nice.
I guess this next car, a white 1967 Plymouth Belvedere 4-door with a 225 CI slant 6 and 3 on the tree, which a slant 6 was a mean Dodge motor. First repair. I love this. I love how he's including his first repairs too, because I usually remember all my first repairs on cars. The first time it let me down.
Yeah.
First repair, the motor mount on the upside. When it failed, the fan hit the shroud and made a horrible sound that was demanding of attention. Of course, when you stop the engine, it settles back and makes a perfect seal with the bad motor mount. And you don't find it until you have your head in the engine compartment to find the problem. Hit the throttle and bang your head when the fan shrieks on the shroud. Which the 67 Chrysler I had, Lee, it would do the same thing. I'd go to take off in that car. It'd make this horrible racket. Couldn't figure out what it was. Finally had a friend standing out and had the hood up, had a foot on the brake, and was hitting the gas at the same time. And that's when I noticed under the edge of the hood, I could see, while the hood was up, through the crack, I could see the motor rocking up on one side and the fan hitting the fan shroud. So that was a Chrysler Dodge Plymouth problem, apparently. And he said that one was a 67 and mine was a 67. So it's probably the same motor mount. Replaced the clutch. Working with my brother-in-law Kendall in our yard with a car on jack stands. We both dreaded trying to get the clutch, gear, and shift aligned as we had no short shaft to test it. Eyeballed it, and there on the ground on our backs. Lifted the transmission into place. Wait, what just happened? It aligned perfectly the first time? To quote Douglas Adams from Hitchhiker's Guide, this never happens.
Maybe they had an infinite impossibility device.
Right.
Yeah.
Red 1975 Fiat X19. Is that right? 1-9?
I think so.
We're talking your car. Fiats. We're talking your car now.
I know nothing about Fiats. I tried to.
The mid-engine 1290cc straight 4 and 4-speed transmission, trunk in both the front and the back, and a Targa roof. Which we did have Fiat here for a while, so I barely remember it. We had Renault here too, but also just barely remember it. It was in the 80s.
Yeah, we've hopefully sometime soon we'll have one of my friends' cars. I'm going to do a drive along and sort of a go through of all the mods and stuff like that on his car. So hopefully that'll be an interesting one for you guys to see at some point.
Yeah, I've been oogling over that one. I can't wait to see it.
There's a lovely yellow color as well.
Right. I love the stickers on the front bumper. That's really cool how that works.
Checkered flag, yeah.
That's awesome. Lee says, I love this car. Great suspension and underpowered, so it's eminently tossable. I learned the problem with this the first time I hit ice and found myself going down highway on-ramp sideways. Apparently I have good instincts and recover from the spin. The only secret to working on this car was knowing what to remove first. Change the fan belt. Step 1, remove the right rear wheel. The car developed an electrical problem that disguised itself as a fuel system problem by the time I realized that I'd bought another car.
Oh.
Started having trouble with the Weber carburetor. On this one, you can take off the air cleaner and pull the jets out of the top of the car to clean them. It turned out to be a bad fuel filter. Major scarce. A stud and nut holding the air cleaner down stripped the hole and fell into the carburetor. Ooh. The nut wedged between the carb wall and the venturi, and instead of falling down in the engine. Some days it's just better to be lucky than good. But it looks like you still got the Fiat. It says the Fiat now sits in my son-in-law JJ's yard with the typical body cancer around the windshield. This happened because it had a rubber gasket around the windshield with chrome trim glued to it, which eventually rattles and eats to the paint, and rain does the rest.
Yeah, bit of tin cancer.
All my cars since have been mostly new and conventional and only required a small amount of work from me. They include a 1984 Plymouth Horizon hatchback, 1.6-liter engine with a 4-speed. It inexplicably had a European instrument cluster, which I liked. After a while, the service manager at the dealer swapped it out for a U.S. instrument cluster because he was afraid he'd screw up the warranty converting kilometers to miles. The engine ate itself after about 10 years.
Oh.
That's weird, though. I wonder if he got it. Had somebody already changed it to a European cluster, or was it just... Did it get installed from the factory and nobody noticed? That's strange.
That is a bit weird.
Short relationship with a used forgotten Hyundai from when they had one body style in the U.S. and hadn't figured out reliability yet. A 1995 or so Eagle Summit 2-door, which we're just talking about, the Eagle Talon.
Yep.
Eagle Summit 2-door, which underneath was a Mitsubishi Mirage Sport, so there was two of them that the Eagle copied from Mitsubishi. Great car. Did not survive the panic stop in front of me, but it punted the offender across the divided highway, narrowly missing oncoming traffic. No injuries, no citations. Overall, a good day, but I missed that car.
Yeah. There's always one car that you wish you hadn't smashed up somewhere along the line.
Yeah, my first
or
Civic.
Sold.
Yeah, I wish I never sold it.
I wish I'd never sold my my old Mini, my proper Mini. But well, I'll probably get chastised for that because calling it a proper Mini rather than my new one, which is technically a Mini, but it's a BMW Mini in my eyes. But I'll never get away with it.
You said BMW Mini, and it made me think of something. Remind me after this email. There's something I wanted to ask you about a different car.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Next, you had a 2000 Volkswagen New Beetle, 1.8-liter engine with a 5-speed manual. Another love affair. When I parked it, the interior was shot, but it still ran till the computer forgot how to idle. It recently found its way into my son-in-law's collection. I only drove it for 15 years. Wow.
Only 15 years.
Only 15 years.
Yeah.
And then Lee's last car and most current car is a 2014 Toyota Prius. Good basic transportation, quiet, economical. Got every option but the radar, and I'm still driving it. Well, thank you, Lee, for writing in. I hope the Prius is still treating you well. I'm jealous of your fuel economy. Even with my little 1.5-liter Honda Civic, I'm still jealous of the Priuses. But all right, you said BMW and Mini are kind of the same. Well, kind of one and the same as far as at least flying under the same
they bought the rights basically, and then they made their own car that was similar.
So is Audi and Porsche kind of the same?
No. Not really. I think it's because they, in my eyes, no. They may have sort of monetarily joined somewhere along the line, but at the end of the day, they still have two very distinct, different types of vehicles. Whereas obviously the BMW Mini is derived from the old Mini, basically. So I mean, you've got like the old Rover Minis, then you've got like the proper, like the other Minis, like the what I call proper Minis. In my head, they're proper Minis, but that's just me being like over the top in my head about it. It's one of those things because I was always a diehard old school Mini person. You know, I looked at the new Minis and scoffed, whereas now I've grown up and realised that I can't afford an old Mini with
Right.
the amount of messing around that I had to do with it and all of the fun and games that I had with my old Mini. I just can't get that sort of I can't get into that sort of spaces anymore as I'm getting older.
The reason I ask is I've seen Audis with Porsche brake calipers on them. So I was wondering, did they just share those brakes, or was Audi owned by Porsche? Or
I think somewhere along the line they had like a parts exchange, because you often see a lot of cars these days have similar sort of pieces to them.
right.
So I think, I'm not 100% sure, I think some of the somewhere along the line Porsche sort of amalgamated some of their sort of like parts distribution stuff that they had for when they're building cars, and sort of gone from there, which meant that obviously some parts from one car, made it into another and vice versa. This is only supposition on my part. I can't really affirm to that. Maybe we should make that our next look into it and see what we can find out about that.
Right, because I didn't know if maybe the people that own the Audis just put Porsche brakes on them because maybe they were like, twin caliper pistons or something where the Audi ones weren't. But I don't know. I seen that on a couple Audis and I thought, oh, well, I wonder if Porsche owns Audi or they collab together or what's going on.
It could just be that they're an easy direct replacement with the least amount of messing around.
If you know, Modology Motorsports at gmail.com. Let us know.
Yep, I pretend to know nothing. I don't know everything in the world when it comes to these sort of things, so I can only surmise these things anyway. But we'll see. We'll have to look it up.
There's a project for the next episode.
Indeed. But one thing to mention that has been doing quite well so far is some of our YouTube videos.
Exactly. Go ahead. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So we've got the top three videos we have, and I'll start from the bottom. So number 3, surprisingly enough, is our actual podcast that we did last month.
That's great.
That's rolling in at 117 minutes worth of viewing at the moment, which isn't too bad, I think.
No, that's pretty good.
Next one up on that is actually the Ford Focus radiator swap, rolling in at about 191 minutes.
It's been cold. Everybody's radiators are exploding.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the podcast. Everything's just been destroying themselves lately. All the coolant systems in the world are just disintegrating.
Right.
And unsurprisingly, the number 1 video or YouTube video so far is actually the Caterham. And that's rolling in at 1,312 minutes. A gargantuan number for a month's worth of views on the channel that's only been up a month. So
that's quite the jump between the two, from what the Focus radiator being in second place at 191 and then the Caterham being there at 1312. I know. Everybody's watching the Caterham video.
Yeah, so it's sort of pushing me more to be able to get another Caterham video out there and do a summary of what's actually happened with that. But I'm not going to say too much about that at the moment because I want to save that for when we do our next podcast.
You about ready to roll through some social media and we'll get out of here?
Yep, I think I'm ready for that.
All right. If you know why Audis have Porsche brakes, or you've seen a Toyota 86 in the wild, or you have your own car history you want to tell us about, because trust me, we want to hear about it. Send it in to modologymotorsports@gmail.com, MODOLOGY motorsports@gmail.com.
Or if you just want to catch us up on Twitter, you can send us something at Modology Motors.
We've also got a Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Modology Motorsports. Or if you want to talk to us on Twitter, on our personal Twitters, you want to get up at me or Marcus directly, I'm at Hesser414.
And I'm at Brunt_Marcus. That's BRUNT_Marcus.
All right, so go watch our YouTube videos. There's new ones up. The car stereo installation is up. I paid $40, $45 for it. Is it worth it? You'll have to
find out.
That's right. You have to watch the video and see, because I'm not telling you to the next episode. So go check it out.
Yep, just make sure that you like and subscribe everything that you can, because any likes and subscribes or any views, it helps us. We can then make better content, and we've got a lot of really good ideas for the future.
Absolutely. Well, Marcus, it's been a pleasure as usual.
As always, Blake.
And thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Good night, guys.
The best, you fucking with the facts. Yeah. I don't even know what else to say. Let that 808 right out though. Yeah.